Contagious Leadership Podcast is in full effect. Luarie-Ann, welcome back as always.
Thank you. It was like I missed being on the show last week.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you had a good time on your vacation, but we've discussed this. We don't like it when you're gone. But anyways, we're glad you're back. Listen, Patrick Veroneau is on the show again. We're going to continue going through what's happening with him right now and the release of his newest book. And we're going to be talking about an attitude of gratitude and why this matters right now as we're looking to reset mindset. We're going to be back in 30 seconds with our special guest. Luarie-Ann, are you excited? Because I am.
I'm really excited. This is a great topic and one we need to have more often throughout the year.
I agree. All right, Donnie, get us out. We'll be back. All right. Welcome, Patrick.
Excellent job on the
Welcome back. So for those of you guys who don't get to see the pre-assembly here of what happens behind the scenes, we were having a good time. And I told Patrick that you came back willingly a second time. So anything that happens from here on out that's my disclaimer. We are not responsible.
It's going to be a good show.
This could throw all of the gratitude topics off kilter right now. I know that.
So let's get into it a little bit. First off, for those who don't know you, let's give another introduction. Let's give you the spotlight for a minute. Tell our listeners who you are and what you're doing, and we're going to get into it.
Sure. So Patrick Veroneau, I run a company called Emory Leadership Group. This is a space that I would say I'm obsessed with, as well as passionate about. And a lot of the work that I do in leadership or teams is all around creating better bridges, better relationships with people. But that always starts with ourselves. And I think that's the part that oftentimes gets missed is how do we make sure that we're building the right bridge internally? Because I think all of us agree, if you're not really there for yourself in a good place, it's hard for you to be there for other people. So that's it. That's what we're doing.
No, that's such a great statement. It's the I'm always reminded of an airline, right? When you get on a plane and they'll tell you, and for the longest time, I would always think that was silly. Like, especially if I had a young child, put your mask on first, then get theirs on. And you're thinking, no. And even yet today, still, there's many of us that understand that we have to take care of other things, especially ourselves, first before we can help others, but we still continue to neglect ourselves in a lot of areas. And I believe being grateful, I believe being thankful, I believe giving ourselves praise and honestly saying, okay, we did a good job. Maybe I can be better because we can always grow, right? But I think when it comes to this area, we really do have a difficult time being grateful in our life and having that attitude of gratitude. I know it's like, oh, hashtag, but this is real.
Right. I think especially when things don't seem to be going well, right? It's hard to sort of stay focused on what is going well. How are things are going well? Because what do? We catastrophize. We think about the worst case scenarios. And two things. One is those worst case scenarios never happen, or I should say rarely ever happen. And the ones that do happen, we don't have control over anyways. So why waste the time on it?
I like that a lot. It's true. Like our minds can, I think, build a case like in a half a second. We can all of a sudden, it's like, here are all the things that can go wrong or that are going to go wrong. Like we almost like anticipate that it's going to happen. And what does that do to our self-esteem, our confidence? And that's what
Yeah.
that's why we had you on the show again.
It's a slippery slope.
Perfect timing. Yes.
So as part of the book that I wrote called The Leadership Bridge, the first part of that book is about building an internal bridge. How do you do that? And I use a lot of data, a lot of research that I believe is able to overlap with the real world, what we actually experience. And one of the things that I did was I took some work by a researcher named Sean Aker, who did what was called the 21-Day Happiness Challenge. And he did this, I think it was back in like 2009, and it was in New York with a financial institution. So if anybody can think back to 2008, right, we remember the financial crash. Probably the last thing that people in New York City from a financial standpoint are thinking about, how can I be happier today, right? And he talked about 5 activities that he had them do for 21 days. And to me, what's even more interesting about this is that if you look at a lot of the research on habit formation, 21 days has no validity to it in terms of it working. But in this case, that's what he did. 21-Day Happiness Challenge, 5 activities. And I created a journal out of it that I use called the Power Journal. And it's an acronym for those 5 activities. And there's a lot of research that is done by other individuals that will reinforce the benefit of each of those. So the first one in the Power Journal is praise, which is what we're here talking about today, is around gratitude. So in his work in this 21-Day Happiness Challenge, what they did was they had to write down 3 things that they were grateful for every day. Now, one of the sort of sticking points in this, or not sticking points, but challenges, was it had to be different every day, right? So if you think about it, right, 3 days, I can think of 9 things that I'm grateful for. When we go out to day 15, right now, I've had to think of 45 different things that I'm grateful for. And to me, that's the real power of this thing, because what do? We oftentimes think of, oh, this isn't going well. This is, my life sucks and all those things. When you've got to think about 45 things that are going well, it creates a shift where you can't make that argument anymore with yourself, because you have listed off 45 different things that you're grateful for. That to me is
okay. So quick question. Can you use the same thing more than once?
No.
Because I can do that. I can do that.
Like that.
I can be like, well, go ahead, Luarie-Ann.
I was just going to say, I see all the time, like on social media, it's like, what are you grateful for today? And I'd love to look at the answers that people come up with, because I always come up with the most basic things. I say water. I'm so grateful for clean water, a home that keeps me safe, that keeps me warm in the wintertime. I come down to like the basic things, and probably just because, Patrick, I've been doing this a little bit, so I'm not going to say, hey, I'm grateful for my partner. I'm grateful for my partner, but I want to bring it down even like to some of the things that I think that we skip over so easily.
So here's where my brain goes right away when you say I'm grateful for water. I'm like, well, duh. What are you going to say? I'm grateful for air. Are you grateful for food too? Right. But don't worry. Right. But here's the deal is, there are people right now in parts of this world and in this country, like right here, who don't have access to clean water, or don't have access to food, or don't have the ability to get what they want for their children. We're getting ready to walk into the holidays. There's a lot of things going on. Despite where you are in a sense of where you feel economically we should or shouldn't be as a country, look at Meta. They just announced 11,000 people just lost their job. Or was it 13,000?
Yeah.
Like right before the holidays. That's not the only one. There are layoffs happening everywhere as companies are restructuring, because whether they were fiscally responsible or not has nothing to do with the fact that people just lost their jobs.
Right. So in some of the work that I do around resilience, when I go into an organization, I might be talking about this. I reference a study that was done, or a survey that was done back in 2014, but it was done by the American Psychological Association. What they did was they surveyed a little over 3,000 individuals. And what's interesting is the title of this article that they put together, and I'm going to read it right here, is called Stress in America, Paying with Our Health, right? So what they did was they surveyed in 4 different areas: work, money, family, and health. and they found that 60% of the individuals that were surveyed listed work as a stress for them, and 64% said finances. Now, this is 2014. Can you imagine what that would be like today? Right?
I
was
can only
actually looking at
imagine.
I was actually looking at a study. I'll have to send it to you, Patrick, but I actually purchased a study done by, I think it was one of the Stanford groups earlier in the year, and it talked about that. It was talking about the stresses, and it was looking at how people were. This was as we were coming out of 2021 into 2022, and we still had a lot of effects happening from a global pandemic perspective. And I was curious how people were looking at it, and I had purchased this study. I'll have to share it. I'll make sure to share it with you, and maybe in the clips on this, we'll put some stuff in, and same thing with your study there. But you're absolutely right, and we don't recognize what this is doing to our bodies until, of course, it's later down the road, right? And then now we're fighting certain aspects of health problems, and it was from these added stresses, these unneeded stresses. I love your post, Matthew 16. What was the chapter?
Yeah, 627.
There it is, 627. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, what can we worry about on things that we have no control over?
No control.
So what are we doing to ourselves as we're not looking at a positive side? So maybe this is on the side of words of affirmation and all of this feel good, huggy. I don't know if you can tell this about me, but I'm a big feel good, huggy affirmation words guy.
I was going to say that. I didn't want to, I was going to go there.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And I'm not opposed to it. I have a hard time doing that. Usually, for myself, I'm the kind of person, when I'm seeing something that's not right, I may want to excuse, but I'll look in the mirror. I'm like, well, you know why it's not there. Like, you know why you're not where you want to be physically. You know why, so you make a decision or stop whining about it.
Right.
And then I'll just say, well, I'm going to stop whining.
And to me, this isn't about coddling either. And again, from the standpoint of the things that we talk about, there's a lot of research out there in regards to the impact of gratitude, or some of the other things that we talk about in terms of, the impact of journaling that can have on our well-being, or volunteering is another one. Exercise, how important that is. And the last one around meditation, or, some type of mindfulness. And again, they're all things that we can easily implement. They don't need to be long, drawn out things that we do, but we need to find ways to put these into our sort of daily activities. And there's a way to do it.
Before we go into that, I have a question for you, Patrick. This is something that I've thought about, like this whole worrying about things and stressing about things. Do you think that this is something that we're just taught to do? Like, as babies, I can't imagine that, like, we pop out of the womb and we have this skill called worrying. I think it's just something that we learned. I mean, like, it's all over TV, it's all over the news. We grew up watching our parents worry about things. Do you think it's more that we are just taught to worry?
Well, I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist in this area, but I know a lot of the reading that I do in this area talks about our amygdala, and it's the reptilian part of our brain. And really, it's there to protect us. It's always sort of questioning, is what's happening right now a threat or not a threat? But the problem is that we still use that system, that reptilian part of our brain, the same way as when somebody was, if we were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Now it's, a job decision or a job loss, and somebody cuts us off in traffic, or somebody says something offensive to us. That same part of our brain is triggered, the amygdala, of either fight, flight, or freeze. And there's some interesting work that was done looking at what's called the APA or the HPA access system. And it talks about what's called an allostatic load that we all have. And when we are with what's called out of allostasis, we don't control stress well. And then a lot of downstream effects, we talk about inflammation and how that impacts a whole host of different things in our bodies that cause problems. Everything from actually weight gain to cardiovascular issues, right? To, you name it. joint pain, all because of inflammation. Not a good thing.
That's coming from our body's natural response
Right.
to protecting it, right? So yeah,
Right.
the saber tooth has now been replaced with your shift manager.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that, or think about it, being on Facebook or any other platform and getting into an argument with somebody on something. What happens is that, and this was an analogy that I read about, if you think of it this way. So say we're back thousands of years ago, and it's a saber-tooth tiger that's coming toward me, and I also have an infection in my intestines, right? That my immune system is going to shut down because it says we need to take all resources and send them to the parts of our body that either you're going to fight this thing or you're going to flee it. And it doesn't matter if you have an infection or not, because if you don't get past this, you're dead anyway. So it waits for that to be over. And then it says, okay, saber-tooth tiger's been taken care of. Now we'll go back to fighting the infection. Our bodies are continually activating ourselves in a fight or flight situation that's not real. So it continues to keep resources away from other parts of our body that need it.
That's interesting. That's actually an angle I'm not sure I've heard, Luarie-Ann. Have you heard that before?
I have heard this, and the past couple of years, when you needed your immune system the most because of the fear, you had blood that was going to other parts of your body, and so you couldn't defend yourself. And so that was the whole point was, and I kept saying to people, like, don't get in fear because you're killing your immune system.
It's counterproductive, right?
That is really interesting. I love that.
Yeah, it's like,
well, I don't love that people are hurting, right? But I mean, I love that I just learned that. Like, I'm like, oh, cool. I love that I just learned that. That's really interesting. And when we look at how we're responding in these types of situations, right? What have you found, Patrick, in terms of like, let's shift this into the business perspective. What have you found ways of where we as individuals can really start to identify that these are not threats, or at least be able to help our brain identify that they're not threats, but they're situations we need to just deal with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's something called, that I use with a lot of my clients, called the thought record. And it's part of a therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. And what I love about the thought record is, to me, it's about slowing down, right? When we catastrophize, when we're sort of fixated on, I'm going to lose my job. And then if I lose my job, I'm not going to be able to pay for my kids' school. And if I can't pay for their school, they're going to have to go, to public school. And if they have to go to public school, they're not going to be educated as well. And they're not going to get into the right college. And if they don't get into the right college, blah, 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 all the way down the line, that I've taken one thing that might happen and catastrophized this thing all the way down to basically the world is going to end. My kids are going to be in counseling and we're all going to be living on the street. And again, likelihood.
What if we just start that way? Like, I just started life that way. Like, okay, this is what we know. So we just got to go the other way. So everything's a win. Yeah. So you just already know. And then maybe, is that a better way to do it? You're not stressing. Everybody's going to be screwed up. We're all going to be in counseling the rest of our lives. And so just go the negative, and then everything you do is positive. So it's like, hey, that's a win.
It's a bonus.
Right?
No, we are so in love with the negative.
Yeah.
So maybe,
right. I think back to that idea that in our brain is looking for, what are the threats? And it's, think of this is the way I think of it, is that our brain is to me no different than a smoke detector, right? In your house, that if you burn food on the stove, what happens? Your smoke detector probably goes off, and you either wave something in front of it, or if you really burn something, you take the battery out. But I don't think anybody on this call would be running.
Look at Luarie-Ann.
Yeah.
So
nobody's running into the street calling 911 saying my smoke detector is going off, I've got a fire, because it's not real.
Well, I'm the guy that disconnects smoke connectors. Yeah. I hate smoke,
to put it back
smoke, right? Yeah, smoke protectors, whatever. I disconnect them. I think they're annoying, right? So it's like, and I think it's funny that you brought up this example. Let me explain why. I'm also that same idea, that same behavioral pattern in my own brain that says, I'm going to eliminate things that give me warning signs because I don't want to know. There's something there, right? There's something there. I'm like, especially when you're cooking at 3 a.m. and don't want to wake up the neighbors, says our producer. Okay, you should be asleep at 3 a.m., but we've had this discussion. Anyways, the point is that I think it's interesting that you mentioned that as an example. How many of us, Patrick, disconnect warning signs out of our life? How many of us disconnect from things that will give us the indication that there's a problem, that there's smoke? Because where there's smoke, there's typically fire.
Or ignore. Yep.
Right. But if you think about it in your house, most of the time, they're not real emergencies, right? So I'm going to disconnect it for a little bit, but I'm going to plug it back in. I override this thing to say this isn't a real emergency. We don't do that with our brain oftentimes, right? Because our brain does the same thing. When it senses a threat, it's just like the smoke detector. It does its job. It's saying, I think there's a threat here. It's now up to us to say, this is not real. My life is not in danger right now, and I've got to take a different course here, right? I'm going to slow this thing down. And I think that's where the thought record comes into play here, when people really get fixated on things going down the tubes. And it starts out with the question of, what's the evidence that backs up what I'm thinking about is true? And what's the evidence that suggests that it's not true? So we have to almost start writing things out or balancing them, right? To say like, okay, I might think this, but what's the evidence that says this isn't going to happen either? And then the next piece I think is really important. It says, what's the worst, best, and most realistic outcome of what's going to happen right now? And again, if you think about it, I bet there are many things that when they happened to us and they weren't positive, we thought, boy, this is not going to end well. But if we look back on those things now, very few of them ended up as poorly as we probably thought they might have in the moment.
A lot of them. A lot of them were a waste of energy, right? And yeah, you do learn that. The older you get, I have this discussion with my team constantly where, they have a high standard for themselves, which I'm very grateful of. But a lot of times I have to remind them, like, well, first off, I remind them that what we do, although we love what we do, we're not curing cancer. We're not saving lives. And what I mean by that is, like, there are certain jobs where you need to worry, like, and that comes with part of the job. If my job is I'm an EMT or I'm a first responder or, I'm active in the military and I'm out in the field, like, yeah, a mistake costs lives. If we spell something incorrectly for some content we're doing for our customer, maybe they're not happy, but guess what? Nobody died. It's going to be okay. We'll learn, we'll get better. But I watch them stress out over this, and I'll tell them all the time, like, this needs to be released. Do not hold this. I don't want you guys to hold this over you.
Yeah. But you talk about I think a really important thing here. You talk about stress versus what somebody in another field that trains for it would call eustress or other type of stress that's beneficial.
Okay. All right. Bring it. Let's hear.
So let's think of, do you remember Sully from US Air?
Yeah.
Right. So if you listen to him in his conversations with the tower, it's very calm, right? He's just sort of going through, they're sort of giving him suggestions, options. Can you get to this runway? And he's sort of like, negative. Nope. Finally, we're going to put this thing down in the Hudson. And I remember one of the interviews of somebody saying, well, how could you be so calm through that whole thing? And he said, well, that's just what we train for. So that when it happens, it's not as much a stressful event because we've run through this over and over again. Right. So it's not out of the ordinary. ER physicians or anybody that works in the ER, same thing. They train for these things. So to the rest of us, that's a high stress environment. And it's not to say that it's not stressful for them, but they prepare for this. So they're ready for the what ifs. And I think in organizations, this is where I think, imagine going to a meeting, you've got a great idea, you go to present it and somebody says like, that sucks, or that was dumb. Right? That is, you just got hijacked, right? Because now your system is trying to defend itself, self-preservation mode. Whereas think about, and I do this work, well, I'll say, if you're going into that meeting and this is a high stress environment, imagine what happens if you're in that meeting and somebody tells you that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. How are you going to respond to that? Because what I've now done is I've prepared myself for, what if people don't like this idea? How am I going to make sure that when I'm in there, I don't get overtaken by this? Because if you don't prepare for it, your ability to think clearly through it when you're in it we know it's diminished.
This is like in elementary school when they did the fire drills. They did the fire drills for a reason, so that you're not herding cats. Like, all the kids are like heading for the door. They're lining up.
Yeah.
This also reminds me, Rigo, of just a couple of weeks ago when Terry was on the show, and he was talking about the pre-mortem. Preparing for what could go wrong.
That's exactly it.
And I think, visualizing what could go wrong. So what if somebody does say that's a sucky idea?
Right.
You're prepared for it because you've already thought about that. And okay, well, but that's your opinion. Right. I'm still going to present it to the board.
Right. We don't do well in stressful situations. I mean, again, unless we're prepared for it. And again, there's a number of studies that will look at doing very, very rudimentary tasks. And then they put somebody in a stressful situation and they have them do the task again. And they generally don't perform as well. Why? Because that part of our brain, the blood that was there, is gone to try and defend ourselves.
So isn't the whole point of why we're talking about gratitude is because of what it does?
Way to bring it back. I was like, how are we going to bring this one back?
Yeah.
Because we're getting into stuff and I want to keep asking questions about my brain because I love conversations about this. And Luarie-Ann's like, we're going to bring it back.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
And
good job.
Patrick knows that I'm a neuroscience geek, but I love this stuff too. So just for everybody who's watching, when we get into those fearful situations, that amygdala, determines this is scary. This is something that I have to fear. And it literally shuts off blood flow to our prefrontal cortex where we make rational decisions. Right. This is how we're going to get into this gratitude and meditation because of what it does to our prefrontal cortex and helps us out later on during those stressful situations.
Yeah. So a couple things. When I talk about it in the journal that people can download off of my site, it's called the Power Journal. And so the first thing that we talk about is praise, right? Those think of at least 3 things that you're grateful for every day. And I just print it off. So on this page, because some people might be thinking, well, how do I practice gratitude every day? So identify 3 things that you're grateful for and appreciate about your life, right? They don't have to be huge things. And I think that's the important thing here. These don't have to be like, I cured cancer, I'm grateful for that. Or they can be simple things. I'm grateful this morning for the sunrise, which I think was one that I got posted today. That's it. Something simple. It doesn't have to be over the top in terms of what we're grateful for. I think when you start to develop this, I think another thing that you can start doing is find ways to be grateful for challenges that you're experiencing.
I love that. That is so true. Because everything is happening. Well, I have this belief that everything is happening for me and not to me. Yeah. So any challenge, any challenge is just, what am I going to learn from this? That's usually, that's my little kind of.
What, to me, when you do that, it's a way to say F you to whatever the challenge you have is. It's like, no, sorry. You think you hurt me? How about this? I'm grateful for you. And it's kind of like, well, now what do I do?
Oh, it's such a good part. It's such a good comment. Excuse me, because I'm thinking, a lot of times for us as individuals, we don't always. It's not like I think when we share this kind of stuff, Patrick, like anything, like any exercise. Let's put this as an example. How we're going live. Okay, this is a live program. There are very few occasions that we go and record. We still record live, and we broadcast. But we're not live. But we're live right now. And we do this 98% of the time. A lot of things have gone wrong behind the scenes. I cannot express to you the amount of anger and fear and frustration and everything that happens at one time. I can literally feel my skin getting hot because there's nothing I can do. And I'm sitting there. And like everything's going wrong. And I can't pull it back. And I don't know what to do. And I want to blame. And in the beginning, that's what I did. I got angry. And I would blame. And I would just cut it off. Or I would do something. And as Donald and I started working more together, I realized I wasn't doing anybody any favors by attacking. And we started looking at these situations, and I started saying, that didn't go well, and it could have gone worse. Thank you. Like,
Yeah.
no. Was I happy? Not. Was I happy that it could have gone way worse and you did everything you understood how to do in your power? Yeah. How do we make sure that doesn't happen again? And I started finding in my own self that my natural reaction to things are like, I don't know if you ever saw the SNL skit. I forget which character, but he kept flipping the poker tables. Are you cheating? Right. And it's just like somebody would say something and he would win a hand and everybody was a cheater. Right. That was the skit. It was a funny skit and he would just flip for everything. Well, it was that idea that, you find yourself in a situation that the minute you feel threatened, your natural response, fight, flight. Some of us who are not fighters, more fighters, we immediately go into attack. Bring it. Yeah. But we're doing it in the wrong, it's the wrong energy, going in the wrong direction. It's the right type because we could fight to be better. We could fight to encourage. We can fight to be grateful. We could look at that situation and go, so this is a shit situation. There's a lot of them out there. And there's a lot of folks out there that are about to get into worse. The economy is going to shift and some people are in a bad spot. It doesn't mean that we have to give up. And it doesn't mean that fighting is wrong. It just means how are we going to fight? How are we going to look and say, okay, what did I gain from this? How am I going to be stronger? How am I going to make sure that this doesn't happen to me again? How am I going to make sure that people's vision of me or impression of me will be what I want it to be, not what someone else is going to speak on, what someone else is going to say about that situation, right?
Yeah, I think along those lines, anytime that you can take, I think, the challenge or the difficulty and turn it on its head, I think you win. Right. So yesterday I went for a run. It's the first run I've done in cold weather, sort of 30 degrees when I went out. 5K run. I think I stopped 4 or 5 times, and I generally won't stop at all, but my lung capacity just wasn't feeling it in terms of the cold weather. So, first off, I'm grateful that I can still get out and run. I'm active in that way. And going forward, I've just sort of got a new baseline in terms of, okay, here's where it was today. I will improve on that. I'm grateful for that I'm going to have an opportunity to go out and do it again.
So don't you also think, Patrick, like this particular situation that you're talking about, it also makes you realize like, wow, this is like how grateful I am for my health, which sometimes we can take for granted because it's going so well for us.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, without question. Yeah. So for me, as we talk about these and I talk about this power journal, I generally do all 5 of those things almost every day, not fully, but almost. And the praise part, I do it first thing in the morning. I've got a journal that is behind me that when I start off in the morning, I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. And we go to your point, I repeat things. And day to day, I repeat things and some of the most basic things. But to me, it reinforces my level of gratitude for those things is how I would look at it. Not that I'm like, I don't know what else to think about today. It's that this thing is really that important to me. And family is something that's in there pretty regularly for me. Abundance is another thing that I will often say I'm grateful for every single morning. I'm grateful for the abundance of opportunities that continue to present themselves to me. That's like a standard gratitude mantra for me, but okay. I'll add a 4th one if I have to, but that is one that's really important to me.
I have a question for you because I think that there's a lot of people who maybe not necessarily them because they may not be the sort of people who watch this show, but they might know somebody who's kind of like a negative Nelly, I'll say, is just very pessimistic. So how do you what's your piece of advice to help somebody who just is constantly looks at the world and every situation with these negative glasses through a negative lens? Yeah. Like, how do you get those people to just kind of like shift? I mean, I know what I've done in the past when I've been around somebody negative, but
some people, you may be familiar with this, LA, is the drama triangle. It's called the drama triangle. And one of those points on the drama triangle is the victim. And there's a lot of value for some people that comes from being the victim and to to solve that for them, they wouldn't know what to do. Like, that's who they are. That to play that role allows them to sort of not have to take responsibility for stuff, and right, you can blame it on other people. For that situation, I will often find when somebody finishes, and I'm all for, if you want to vent on something, that's okay. I look at venting like going on vacation. It's nice to do for a little while, but eventually you got to come home, right? You can't stay on vacation all the time, at least not yet. But to me, it's to try and turn it to say, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? What do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
Because you could have some people that just don't feel as though they've ever been heard. Like, nobody's ever really acknowledged their frustration. And they may just say, oh, I don't know. I just am frustrated and needed to say it. I don't know that anything can be done.
That's the only way.
Oh, go ahead, Luarie-Ann. I don't let me forget that comment that Patrick just made. I want to come back to it.
Okay. But Patrick, I also think like there are people like they don't know how to have relationships or conversations with people without talking about something negative. Like, it gets them attention.
Yeah. Again, so part of that serves them.
Yeah.
That serves them to come from that.
Coach Kevin had talked about this when he was, thank you, when he was talking about, how did he put it? The reference was like a dam, but it was talking about somebody that has potential. There it was. And he was talking about, it was a few months back, and he had talked about potential and how potential is worthless, right? Potential means nothing. It's potential. It's in action. Yeah. Then it becomes, you haven't done anything yet. What I have found too, especially in the coaching business, being coached myself, finding these same attributes in myself in some areas, right? Because there's some areas I'm like, I'm unstoppable in. And then there's other spots where I'm a whiny little baby, right? And you're just like, you don't see that. And you're like, no way, that's not me. Like, and then you find yourself like, wow, I'm playing a victim card. Why? Well, because it's easy for us to go vent and talk about these things and play a victim. And what happens is we're behaving just like potential. You see, we've expressed it, we've shared it, we got it out, and then we can tell ourselves, well, I did what I needed to do. As a coach, Luarie-Ann, you yourself, you train and teach. I train and teach. Patrick, you train and teach. How many individuals sign up for our course, get involved in our programs, and then tell us later it didn't work? And then you go, you didn't show up.
Right.
And then when you showed up, you never asked questions. And then you also never did the work. So you see, showing up is, yes, that's part of it, but that's just potential. Going out and whining, it's just potential. Like, until you actually do something with what you're learning, get it out, like you said, vent, but then you gotta, like vacation, you gotta come back home. But now what are you gonna do with it? And it's easy. We find ourselves doing that. And here's the crazy thing. For those listening right now, if you find yourself there, guess what? You're in good company. We all do it. Like, this is not like you're the big loser who can't figure out how to do this. Like, we all do this. This is why we're constantly reminding ourselves. This is what I love right now with what you're doing, Patrick, is you're saying, hey, have an attitude of gratitude. Be grateful. Why? Because you're reminding yourself at the same time how grateful you are of the gifts that have been given to you this year.
Yeah.
Or
and it's like going to the gym. This is like going to the gym, is that if we were to go to the gym today and we talk about, all these things, and then we don't go to the gym again for another 2 months, if we were to show up in 2 months from now, would any of us be surprised that we weren't any stronger? No, because we didn't, intellectually, we knew gratitude was important and we could think about it every day, but if we didn't practice it, then we're not going to get stronger. The more you do this, the stronger you get in terms of being able to deal with the other things that exist in your life. It almost becomes, those things become, I would say, more like self-correcting. You just don't let them get to you the same way as you did before, because it's like you've built this muscle of gratitude. You're like, I'm not going to allow that. It's not going the way I wanted it to. It sucks right now, but I got bigger stuff going on right now. That is not going to pull me down. And to me, that's the difference in this.
That's awesome. Now, we just blame Donnie for everything. It works out really well. We actually had a hashtag for a while. It was called Damn It Donnie. It was Donnie's fault. It went on for about a year and everybody loved it. It was, damn it, Donnie. It was Donnie's fault.
Need a t-shirt.
We actually designed a t-shirt. We just never printed it. Yeah, there's quite a few
Still
people.
on my LinkedIn name.
Still on my LinkedIn name, he says.
That's awesome.
No, but you're right. And this is such a normal human behavior. That's one of the things that I realize and what I love about these conversations, right, Patrick? When Luarie-Ann, we talk about this stuff all the time when we're meeting all these great guests and we're bringing all these people on is, we're doing this to strengthen ourselves and strengthen those who are willing to be a part of the conversation too. By helping each other, we help ourselves. What was it? How's the comment work? Right. A rising tide raises all boats, ships, whatever.
Yeah. And I look at this like almost as though it was a partner going to the gym. I'm going to the gym with somebody else. When I put all these things out and I post or do all that, it's for my benefit too, because it reminds me what I'm supposed to be doing myself, not just what other people should do. It's like, you need to do this yourself, Patrick.
Yep.
It's not about other people.
No, that's right. That's right. All right, Luarie-Ann, I'm going to step back a minute here. I'll let you.
So there's a bookend.
Oh, no. Look, let's hear it.
So there's a bookend here, right? So in the Power Journal, the first part is gratitude. One of the other activities in that was and they just made it a suggestion that you write down 2 or 3 sentences about what went well over the last 24 hours. Well, when I wrote it in the Power Journal, and what I recommend people do is do it at the end of the day, right before you're going to bed. Write down 3 things that you're grateful for that happened during the day. And I think that's the part that often gets missed. People might do the gratitude in the morning, but then, stuff happens during the day. They get in an argument with somebody. They don't finish a project doesn't go well, and they go home with that. And before they go to bed, they're thinking about all the stuff that's greeting them tomorrow, and probably not all positive. Whereas if you end your day from a place of, what am I grateful for today? I think it sets us up for one of the most important parts of our 24-hour cycle. And that's when we go to sleep and our body restores itself. Let's go to bed in a more positive place.
Yeah. Imagine how much better you'll sleep too.
Yeah. Right. I'm not going to sleep right before I go to bed and thinking, oh my God, tomorrow. I'm thinking about what did go well. And this might take more work, but I guarantee you, even if it has to be as little as I made it through the day alive, I don't care. But you've got to start somewhere. And when you do that, again, you're building this muscle and you bookend your day. You started the day
this is a bookend. I love that term. But yeah, I love that term. And really, yeah, no, I love that. I've never heard it said that way, but this is where it comes back to the power of journaling, recording wins, losses, right? This is the whole part of understanding the power of meditation. And that's one of those too, you talked about it and that's a whole nother conversation because, you're talking about compound effects. And that's what a lot of, we go back to, the whole aspect of the 1% effect, right? Of what that is to do these small things every single day. But I wanted to give you an opportunity. Where can our listeners find these resources? Oh, look at you.
So this was going to be the right. We talk a lot of anecdotal stuff on here. This was one that it's back in 2017, but it's a study, right? Anybody can just Google stuff on gratitude and its impact on health, right? There are a number of different ones. This is one in particular that I reference a lot because it deals with both an fMRI where they mapped somebody's brain out to sort of see what happened, but they also looked at their heart rate. They monitored the person's heart rate, and they did it in 2 different ways. They put people in a state of gratitude and another in a state of resentment, which I love, right? Gratitude and resentment. And what they did was they had 5 minutes for each group. So the first minute of this experiment, the person had to focus on their breathing. But this is hilarious. So for the next 4 minutes, if you were in the positive gratitude, you had to think about your mother and how much you love and appreciate her. Now, the only question I would have here is some people don't have great relationships with their mothers. So
yeah, I was about to say that one would go like, that could be tough for a lot of people. There would be resentment and then it would go back to gratitude and it'd be.
So maybe pick your own person that you can for 4 minutes say how much you love what they've done for you. Right. So let's do that. But the other group was to think about somebody that has wronged you and that you resent for 4 minutes. Haagen-Dazs. And what they found was that Heart rate was lower in the group that did, this positive gratitude. And also the parts of their brain around anxiety and stress were lower too. Science.
I just remembered something. Science. It's science. I just remembered something I really wanted to share, and I recently had discovered this in some of my own coaching. But one of the things that I thought was powerful was as we start to study the brain and you understand how the brain works, and we go back to the amygdala and all of the other aspects, the fear sections of our brain cannot identify the difference between fear as a memory or fear as an immediate. And here was something to add to your piece of the conversation. And I think it's powerful. Not only does gratitude help keep us out of areas like resentment, but holding on to guilt, shame, hurt, all of these things that keep us back in a negative memory literally puts our brain right back into the moment. It is, like you said, we are running for our life or we are back under that stress load, which is why guilt, shame are such horrible things when we use them on the negative side, right? To use a positive end, use it to help us make better future choices, one thing. Holding on to it, right? Have you heard this as well in your studies of up here?
Yeah, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined as well. That speaks to the power of visualization.
Imagined as well. Jiminy.
And I think we should take advantage of that. I mean, like for people to really understand that.
Yeah, let's go the other side, right, Luarie-Ann?
Right. Tap into it. Use it for your benefit.
Yeah, I have an app that, I have a Zapier that sends me a text every morning that says, every thought is a bullshit story, so tell yourself the right story.
You talked about this. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
There are so many resources out there that you can Google around this area in terms of meditation, guided meditation, where it will walk you through.
Whatever works.
Yeah, right.
Eyes open, eyes closed, on your head, off your head. Donnie likes to do his on his head. He likes to do his
different things.
Everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. I'm picking on Donnie today.
And for our audience that's watching or listening to this, just give it a try. I always tell clients, try this out for 2 weeks. If it doesn't work out for you, you get to go back to your old ways that wasn't working anyways. But try this gratitude, run your own experiment and see how you feel. And I also tell people, put sticky notes around the house to remind yourself, I need, what am I grateful for today? Put it on the mirror, put it in your wallet or something, put it on your day planner that you're always opening, just to remind yourself, what am I grateful for at this moment?
If I had the picture, I'd show you. I took my kids' magnets, Patrick, Luarie-Ann, and I put it on the fridge and I said, no guilt, right? Sorry about that. No guilt, no shame, new choice. And it's and you know what's funny is I did it kind of because I just needed to, and it wasn't to post or anything. And yes, I used kids' magnets and I had to use numbers for some letters because I didn't have all the vowels I needed. But the point is that there's been a couple times, more than once, I know for a fact, as I walked by or as I'm going into the fridge, funny enough, it's actually stopped me from late night snacking. And it was not there for that reason. But I'm like, you know what I mean? All right, because I love cereal. Some people do ice cream. For me, it's Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Give me a bowl of cereal over a bowl of ice cream any day. And I think there's quite a few other men I know that. What was that, Luarie-Ann? Fruit Loops for you?
Oh, yeah. Fruit Loops.
Peanut butter.
What is that peanut butter? That peanut butter cereal?
I don't know because I'm not
peanut butter version.
the peanut butter version.
Reese's?
I actually will take a granola. Yeah, the Reese's is a good one, and I mix granola, and I put that in the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and then I always have fresh fruit because my little one loves fresh fruit. So I'll take some blueberries and it's pure sugar. These are not the good kind. Blueberries are blackberries and strawberries. It's pure. Come on, the bowl is I would probably be better off eating ice cream, Patrick, by the time I'm done, right? But a bowl of cereal.
You have to work on those magnets. But Patrick, I'm going to bring us back. Here I am bringing us back. Thank you.
Yeah, Lori, you're so boring. Boring. Boo. I'm gonna throw her off, Patrick. Let's see if you can maintain.
What are the other letters?
I'm in trouble. I can see it. I'm in trouble. Go ahead, Luarie-Ann.
I want to know what the other letters are to the Power Journal. P is for free.
So O is for others. O is for others means do something for somebody else. Again, a lot of research around volunteering, how that impacts our own well-being when we do for others. The E is for exercise. In the studies that they did, it was only 10 minutes, minimum of 10 minutes. And the last one is relaxation, the R in that. And that's around 2 minutes, a minimum of 2 minutes a day that you try and find for could be square breathing, just working on 2 minutes of quiet time. So if you do the gratitude meditation, you almost kill two birds with one stone, because you're doing gratitude and you're meditating at the same time. There you go. Save some time.
Love that. And people can download the Power Journal.
Yeah, the Power Journal is right on my website. So Emory Leadership Group, and that's EMERY, not like the college.
So I'm gonna take the website. I'm gonna drop it into the chat right now, so everybody can get to it there. And I was actually looking to see where the Power Journal is for the link, but you know what? You need to check out his website anyways. A lot of good stuff there. Download. Got it. Awesome. Right to the download section.
Huge. It's important. And I guess if I were to leave with anything aside from gratitude, I would ask people to think about it this way, that there's resources and there's resourcefulness. We will always lack resources. I don't have enough money. I don't have the right education. I'm not tall enough. I'm too tall, whatever it might be. I don't have the right, certifications. What we all have equal access to is resourcefulness. Nobody has any more or any less. And to me, gratitude falls into that area of resourcefulness, that when things aren't going your way, to me, that's when that's when gratitude, that resourcefulness becomes even more important.
That's awesome, Patrick. I can't thank you enough for always being, first off, a great guest, a great sport, and being willing to share such great content. Anytime we can get into conversations that have to do with the mind, I think it's so powerful. And I think, what's great is that as science has continued to grow, technology has been incredible. I mean, the things that we can now understand more about the way our brains operate. Yeah. I have a young son he was autistic, and he's got what they call Asperger's. And so this level of autism is so different, and it's just been incredible because there's resources out there to understand this. It has changed things for us and our family, but more importantly, it's like I think about the parents and people that have had to struggle with understanding these types of things. I think about my parents raising me, trying to understand what that was like, right? But you look at fast forward to today, and I think we need to look at the same thing with ourselves in a personal level, in our relationships, in business. Like, it's okay if something doesn't make sense. It's okay if things don't seem to connect. Like, we need to be expanding ourselves, finding people like yourself, finding people like Luarie-Ann, looking at how to grow and get our skills, and looking at how we can be grateful for everything that we have access to, the availability of this information. My God, all three of us remember what it was like to have to go to a library and deal with a librarian. Like, they don't get it. And I'm like, you don't understand. There is zero excuses today to not have the information you want at your fingertips and our fine resources. And I love that we can do this. You want to talk about gratitude? I'm grateful that I can be a part of something as simple as this podcast. It fills me for the week. I look forward to this every week, to speak to a new guest, to have Luarie-Ann and all of her glory on our program and be a part of this, and then just learn something, be reminded of something, and then share it with others. Like, how cool is that, Patrick?
Yeah. And you know what? I got to tell you, I'm grateful to not have to go to the library, because I always got kicked out. I couldn't stop talking. To them,
I was never, ever asked to keep it down. Ever.
Never.
I'm sure you weren't.
Never.
I'm sure you weren't. No.
Yeah, I didn't go to libraries. I had girlfriends that did that. They did that. No, come on. Yeah, I learned later in college that probably wasn't a good skill set to build. Whatever. I got through that too, but I figured it out. So you guys, awesome. I think this was great. Luarie-Ann, I'm going to give you an opportunity here to share anything. And Patrick, we'll give you the last word, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to send you home, and we're going to end the program. But Luarie-Ann?
So I think what I want our audience really to walk away with is not to poo-poo this gratitude stuff or this meditation stuff. You know, really something so simple can have such a profound impact on our lives and also the relationships with the other people that are in our lives, our spouses, our children, the people that we work with. You know, just try it out for a couple of weeks and just see what happens. I've run this experiment myself on, like on my life, and never went back.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So on that note, circling all the way back to the 21-day happiness challenge, when they did this, they found that 6 months later, those people that stuck with this self-reported themselves as being happier than when they started. And isn't that really the end result? It's they self-reported themselves as being happier. Not they were observed. They themselves said, I'm in a better place now 6 months later than I was when I started. And I think that's really important.
Awesome.
And for those people that are overwhelmed, like, where do I start? Start small. And for me, the other tagline that I would use is rise above your best, right? It's rise above your best. Wherever you are right now, you can do something else tomorrow. Don't match yourself against anybody else. What can you do personally to get better tomorrow? Rise above your best.
Love it. Awesome. It was a good call. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you coming back again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope, hey, listen, for those of you guys watching, yes, Leadership Bridge.
Thank you very much. Leadership Bridge.
Yes, always got to be. It's a good book. You guys need to be checking this out. And also, we dropped Patrick's website link in there. Listen, if you haven't started following Patrick, please do us a favor, or Luarie-Ann, or myself, but especially our guest today. Please get on and give them let them know that you're watching, that you're grateful, that you enjoyed the time here. If you haven't started doing that with us as well, it's really not that difficult. You just go to our page and you click follow. If you think that you're getting value out of us here, please let us know. And if you like it, share with others. That's the number one way you can show us your gratitude. Is say, hey, I think this is a great program. Why don't you guys check this out? So anyways, listen, I am so grateful for everyone. Donnie says, wink, wink. Yeah. You want to be grateful, right? Show us your gratitude by sharing with others. Listen, if you haven't also subscribed to our newsletter, we'll put a link in the chat on that one as well. But we're excited about this newsletter, Patrick. I don't know if you've been able to check it out, but listen, it's real simple. We take what we just went over, we highlight the stuff that matters, and we get you right to it. So this was a good show. I'm not gonna lie. I had a good time, but I was also being a little goofy, and I may have taken it on a couple of the wrong routes. But we're gonna take it, we snip it down. I promise you the read is less than 3 or 4 minutes long with a couple video clips. We send it out every week, and we hope that gives you some value. And the best part about it, you can sign up for the next one right there. The link's in it. If you have not subscribed to our newsletter yet, please do so. It is the Contagious Leadership Podcast newsletter. Pretty simple. Listen, I'm grateful for this day. I'm grateful for our guests. Thank you both very much. Luarie-Ann, always for being here as a co-host. And honestly, the entire team, we can't do this without you. And we're so happy you're here. Patrick, thank you again for being on the show. You guys, please have an amazing week. If you like it, drop stuff in the comments. You know all the good stuff. We just want to know that we're making an impact in your life. God bless. We will talk to you guys next week. See you later.
Peace. Thanks.